How can an ordinary person filter through the overwhelming sea of information about health and fitness, where some advocate in the name of personal experience, others fabricate false testimonials, and somewhere, there's even outright deception, all to find genuine knowledge? That's the opening question for Body by Science, a book written by Dr. McGuff and researcher John Little. This work is not just a training manual, but an effort to expose long-held misconceptions in the fitness industry. From running being considered the standard of health, to the belief that more is always better. Instead of relying on promises or the examples of genetically gifted individuals, this book places its entire focus on scientific data, experiments, and biological logic. But the real question the book raises is not just how to exercise to get healthier, but how much time have we wasted on ineffective methods, and whether it's possible to achieve optimal fitness with just 12 minutes a week. This very paradox, less but more effective, shorter but more sustainable, makes the book a challenge to conventional intuition and simultaneously an invitation to step into a new way of looking at the human body. Chapter 1: Defining Health, Fitness, and Exercise. Health, fitness, exercise, concepts that seem universally understood, but upon closer scrutiny, they become surprisingly vague. We talk about them every day. The fitness industry is also flooded with promises revolving around these three words, but have you ever realized there's no truly unified definition? When I was a medical student, the massive pathology textbook I had to study, The Pathologic Basis of Disease, could describe every type of illness, every cellular damage, every pathogenic mechanism. Yet, flipping through thousands of pages, I couldn't find a single line defining health. How ironic. We can classify what's broken, but we can't precisely define what's whole. Health is not a static, unchanging state. The body is like a living machine, always operating in a tug-of-war between two opposing forces: catabolism, destruction and depletion, and anabolism, building and regeneration. Imagine your blood. It never just clots or just thins. It's always in a dynamic balance, simultaneously breaking down old clots and forming new ones to prevent you from bleeding out, but also to prevent blockages in your blood vessels. Or consider the body's acid-base levels, hormones, electrolytes, fluids. All are constantly fluctuating. Even a slight imbalance can threaten life. Thus, health, in its deepest sense, is the ability to maintain the fragile balance between catabolism and anabolism. And I offer a cautious but necessary definition. Health is a physiological state free from disease, in which the body maintains an optimal balance between destructive and constructive processes. What about fitness? It's not simply about bigger muscles or running faster. Fitness, in my view, is the body's capacity to confront challenges beyond resting levels. That could be climbing a flight of stairs in your 50s, warding off a bout of flu, or enduring a peak performance in a competition. Fitness is a measure of whether your body can withstand, recover from, and adapt to environmental pressures. The key point: we often confuse health and fitness, thinking that if you're fit, you'll be healthy, but that's a mistake. Many world-class athletes possess extraordinary strength and astonishing achievements, but the price they pay is a body worn out, a shortened lifespan, and health collapsing after the spotlight fades. In other words, fitness can skyrocket while health plummets. At this point, another question arises. What does exercise mean? Many people still refer to any activity as exercise. Running, playing tennis, doing yoga, push-ups, hiking, all are lumped together. But if viewed through a biological lens, not every movement deserves the name exercise. According to the definition I propose, exercise is a purposeful activity designed to stimulate the body, produce a positive physiological adaptation, and enhance fitness and health without simultaneously harming health. Exercise is not just movement, it's precise intervention, like a prescribed dose of medicine, the right amount, at the right time, for the right target. This might sound obvious, but it overturns an entire system of beliefs. Take running, for example. A habit so common it's almost become a symbol of a healthy lifestyle. Yet, research data shows that up to 60% of runners get injured within a year. On average, one injury occurs for every 100 hours of running, and the consequences are not just short-term sprains or muscle strains. After 15-20 years, Many who enthusiastically ran every morning find their knees can no longer handle stairs, their shoulders can't be raised due to bone spurs, and their spines ache incessantly. That's the price of a repetitive, excessively catabolic form of movement that doesn't allow the body time for anabolism to regenerate. It's not just running. Think of recreational tennis, tens of thousands of racket swings in a lifetime. The racket is light, but the shoulder and elbow joints bear repeated rotational forces. A few decades later, many face degenerative joint disease, a significant cost for this healthy pastime. So, not everything is exercise. If an activity does not lead to a lasting positive adaptation, or worse, erodes the body's ability to self-recover, then it is merely a form of physical activity, nothing more. When it comes to the relationship between health and fitness, we easily mistake them as always going hand in hand. The fitter you are, the longer you live, the more you exercise, the less sick you get. But the truth is more paradoxical. Remember the athletes in history. Phidippides, the Greek soldier, after the victory over the Persians, ran over 200 km in a single day to bring the sacred flame home. He arrived, delivered the flame, then collapsed and died shortly after. Or the more famous story, Phidippides, the messenger from Marathon to Athens. He also ran hundreds of kilometers, shouted victory, and then collapsed, his heart stopped. That is the origin of the modern marathon. The irony is that people today erect statues and organize races to commemorate that death, a death from extreme exercise, from turning fitness into a poison for health. The modern world is not short of such examples. Jim Fixx, author of The Complete Book of Running, was a strong advocate for jogging, yet he died of a heart attack while running. Scientific studies today show that long-distance runners have a significantly higher risk than average people of developing cardiovascular diseases, atrial arrhythmia, liver and gallbladder damage, kidney failure, and even brain degeneration and cancer. They are fit in the traditional sense, but their health is compromised, even shortened compared to those who don't overexercise. If fitness and health can be separated, then we need to ask, how do we exercise so that both can go hand in hand? Here, modern science offers a hint. Consider the relationship between volume, intensity, and frequency of exercise. The issue is not how long or how much you exercise, but stimulating the body just enough to create beneficial adaptation and then allowing it time to recover. Imagine someone measuring sea level. He stands on the shore when the tide is low, marking the first point. 20 minutes later, the water rises by 5 meters. He records it. 10 more minutes, the water is 15 meters higher. From this, he concludes that if it continues like this, in 2 weeks the entire continent will be submerged. You immediately see the absurdity in that extrapolation. Yet in fitness, we often make similar mistakes. Seeing that a little more activity improves health, we believe that increasing it indefinitely will continuously improve health. In reality, what happens is that health increases to the biologically necessary baseline, then plateaus. It can even reverse if pushed too far. Our ancestors provided a vivid demonstration during the hunter-gatherer era. To survive, they had to move a lot hunting animals, breaking rocks, carrying heavy loads. They were fit because circumstances forced them to be. But remember, the average lifespan back then was only about 47. Many collapsed by age 40 due to worn-out joints and body breakdown. Our genes only needed a body to survive long enough to procreate, raise offspring, and pass on the genetic code. After that, the health of this gene carrier vehicle was no longer a priority. In other words, genetics only cares about the minimum, not your old age. But today, we have knowledge our ancestors didn't. We understand that we don't need to chop trees or quarry stone for hours to maintain an anabolic-catabolic balance. We can create a similar impact in just a few minutes of high-intensity, precise, safe exercise. This allows us to be healthy without the burden of degeneration, without paying the price of a shortened lifespan. At the other extreme, modern humans also face another enemy: excess. We no longer need to run for miles to hunt animals. We sit in cars and offices typing on keyboards. Food is abundant and easy to get, and the body is no longer forced to move to survive. Thus, the paradox repeats. Half of humanity suffers from weakness due to lack of movement, the other half destroys themselves by exercising incorrectly. This is why we must define it. It's not more is better. It must be the precise dose, the least possible, but enough to create beneficial adaptation. Like medicine, exercise also has a dose, a threshold, and toxicity when abused. If misunderstood, it turns from a savior into a destroyer. People often believe that more activity means better health, and that physical training leads to longevity. But science paints a more complex picture. The soaring human lifespan in the 20th century was not due to magic pills or harsh training regimes, but primarily due to sanitation, clean water, and technology. Sewage systems preventing epidemics, public transportation allowing people to live less densely, avoiding disease spread. It was these seemingly mundane inventions that were the secret to extended life. Medicine and exercise played only supplementary roles, so let's not romanticize the past. Our ancestors were not naturally healthy as many imagine. They died early, their bodies worn out by toil. We are more fortunate. We have the knowledge to choose smart exercise methods, avoiding old mistakes. And from this foundation of knowledge, a new definition of exercise becomes necessary. Exercise should not be understood as doing as much as possible. It must be the search for the most effective minimum. The goal is not to force the body to endure, but to awaken biological adaptation mechanisms and then give it time to recover like tempering steel, heating it just enough to change its structure, but not too long to make it brittle. Precisely because of this, we must stop the habit of using exceptional individuals as role models, legendary athletes with extraordinary physiques. They are like unusually tall trees in a forest, soaring only due to genetic variations. If you try to mimic their training regimens, you will only invite failure or injury. Science calls them bell curve outliers, individuals at the extreme edges of the distribution curve. Applying their data to the general population is a fundamental error. The lesson here is clear. Exercising for health and exercising for medals are two different paths. Those who seek victory may destroy their own bodies. Those who seek long-term health need a completely different approach. Why is the vague concept of health and fitness dangerous? Because when not clearly defined, we are easily led astray. The fitness industry exploits this ambiguity to sell promises, hour-long training programs, meaningless supplements. It costs millions of people their time, their joints, and even their faith. We need a new foundation. Health is not about exercising as much as possible. Fitness does not equate to longevity. Exercise, if properly understood, is the bridge to achieve both fitness and maintain health. But that bridge must be built from science, from precision, from moderation. Exercise is not a journey to seek extremism, but the art of finding the sufficient threshold. Just at the right threshold, the body will know how to get stronger, fitter, and more resilient to go the distance with you. Chapter 2: Global Metabolic Conditioning. One Friday afternoon, two men decided to exercise for health. But what they did and how they used their time differed so much it seemed they were from two opposing worlds. The first man jogged along a busy road, cars whizzing by, the roar of engines blending with the repetitive sound of his footsteps. Sweat beaded, his breathing was heavy. He had been running like this all week, 3 miles on Monday, 5 on Tuesday, then another 4 or 5 miles on subsequent days. Today, his goal was another 5 miles, plus an hour of weight training at the gym immediately after. Before his run, he spent 10 minutes warming up and stretching to prevent injury. After the run, another 10 minutes cooling down. All told, he would spend nearly 3 hours. During this time, he wondered if he would make it to his daughter's dance recital. To make it, he had to sacrifice and call his wife to take their daughter, while he continued running, telling himself, "Health comes first." This week alone, he spent over 12 hours exercising, not including travel time. The second man was in a small gym, sitting on a leg press machine, his legs trembling on the final push. Before that, he had just completed a 90-second set of chest press, then 3 minutes on the pull-down. Now he persevered for a few more minutes on the leg press. That was it. His entire workout totaled less than 9 minutes, with no rest between movements, no lengthy conversations. When he finished, his trainer looked at a chart. Chest strength up 20%, back up 20%, legs up 30%, leg endurance up 45%. "Excellent, see you next week," the trainer said, and he went back to work. This week, he spent exactly 8.5 minutes exercising. These two images, one sweating for hours, the other for less than 10 minutes challenge the ingrained belief that to be healthy, you must invest a lot of time. Is it possible to spend just 6-8 minutes a week and still achieve superior results? The answer from science is yes. In 2005, a research team at McMaster University in Canada published shocking results. They showed that just 6 minutes of high-intensity exercise per week could improve cardiovascular endurance and increase metabolic capacity, on par with or even exceeding traditional cardio programs lasting hours. The method they used was simple: a few bursts of extremely fast cycling, each lasting only 30 seconds, interspersed with 4 minutes of rest. Each session totaled only 2 to 3 minutes of actual exercise, performed 3 times a week for 2 weeks. So just 15 minutes of exercise over 14 days. But this group doubled their endurance, while the control group, who diligently jogged and cycled lightly, saw no change at all. Imagine, just 6 minutes a week and endurance doubles. This completely reverses what we once thought. For years, we believed cardio meant long runs and hours of cycling. Now, evidence shows that intensity, not duration, is what matters. Another study by the same McMaster group went even further. This time, they directly compared 2 groups. The traditional training group cycled for 20 minutes at a moderate level, 3 times a week, totaling over 12 hours in 2 weeks. The sprint interval training group performed short, high-intensity intervals, cycling extremely hard for 30 seconds, resting for 4 minutes, repeated 3-5 times. The total actual exercise time was less than 20 minutes over 2 weeks. The results were surprising. Both groups improved their endurance and metabolic capacity equally. This means the SIT group spent only 2% of the time compared to the TT group, but achieved the same results. If you look closer, you'll realize the deeper meaning. The body doesn't care how long you exercise, but how hard you push it. Heart, lungs, blood vessels, muscles, all only know that they need to supply energy for extreme bursts. And it is at that moment that the entire metabolic system must upgrade, adapt, and become stronger. Conversely, hours of steady jogging are like gently knocking on a door. The body has no strong reason to change significantly. This shocked many in the fitness world. They protested. How can a few short minutes of exercise compare to hours of cardio? Does this mean all the sweat, effort, and discipline over the years were meaningless? But science doesn't care about skepticism. Results are results. Listen to how the researchers explained it. They performed muscle biopsies on the subjects after 2 weeks. The results showed a significant increase in muscle enzymes like citrate synthase and cytochrome C oxidase. These are important biomarkers reflecting the body's ability to use oxygen. In other words, with just a few short cycling bursts, the body's aerobic system was activated to the same extent as tens of hours of cycling. Even the muscle's glycogen storage and lactate tolerance improved identically. In essence, the body doesn't differentiate between running a marathon or doing a few intense cycling intervals. It only responds to urgent energy demands with the intensity you force it to meet. Think of your heart. It doesn't have a classification memory. This is running, this is cycling, this is leg press. To it, it's all muscles demanding energy. The sole task of the heart and lungs is to meet that demand, and when intensity reaches a threshold, the body will be forced to upgrade itself. It is intensity, not the specific activity, that is the key. Why is this? Because the truth lies in the metabolic mechanism. Each muscle cell is like a miniature power plant. When you exercise, glucose enters the cell and is metabolized in the cytoplasm via glycolysis. This process creates pyruvate and a little ATP, the energy form the body uses. If the intensity is low, pyruvate can enter the mitochondria to participate in the Krebs cycle and the respiratory chain, creating more, cleaner ATP. That's the aerobic pathway. But when you train too intensely, pyruvate production far exceeds the aerobic system's processing capacity. Pyruvate builds up and turns into lactate. You feel a burning sensation in your muscles, shortness of breath, a pounding heart. That's a sign of temporary imbalance. And then, during the recovery phase, the body must process this lactate, converting it back into pyruvate to send to the mitochondria. At that point, the aerobic system is forced to work harder, becoming stronger. The paradox is that the greatest aerobic benefits appear after you train anaerobically in a state of extremely high intensity. The so-called burn That burning sensation in your muscles is not a sign of failure, but a signal that adaptation is being activated. Therefore, long, drawn-out jogging sessions, leisurely hours of cycling, ultimately do not provide a strong enough stimulus for the metabolic system. They maintain, but do not upgrade. Conversely, a few minutes of training so heavy you tremble and are exhausted are precisely the strongest medicine to force the body to evolve. This story forces us to re-examine the concept of cardio. For decades, thanks to pioneers like Kenneth Cooper, cardio meant prolonged, moderate-intensity exercises, running, swimming, cycling. And everyone believed that was the only way to train the cardiovascular system. But in reality, cardio is just one slice. The cardiovascular system does not operate in isolation. It serves the muscles, and when the muscles work at their extreme limit, the heart and lungs are pulled along for a comprehensive upgrade. In other words, true cardio is not about the form of movement, but whether you dare to push your body to its limit. This is a new and somewhat unsettling realization. Because if this is true, then millions of hours people spend jogging, cycling, and doing aerobics turn out to be a colossal waste of time, even causing joint wear and tear and injury. The paradoxical effectiveness lies in short, condensed workouts that seem too brief to accomplish anything. Imagine a fuse in an electrical system. Normally, current flows steadily, everything works smoothly. But only when you turn on too many devices at once does the fuse blow, indicating the system has reached its limit. Exercise is similar. Only when intensity reaches its extreme threshold is the body forced to upgrade its entire metabolic network to survive. If you only operate at an average level, you will never touch your true potential. This is why short but intense minutes can be many times more effective than hours of toil. The body doesn't care how long you exercise, only the level of mobilization. A single set of leg press that makes your muscles tremble, your heart pound, your breath catch, is more valuable than dozens of leisurely jogging laps. And most importantly, this method is not only effective but also safer. Remember, long-distance running year after year means millions of repetitions of the same movement. Knee joints, hip joints, spine have to bear constant impact force. Degeneration is only a matter of time. In contrast, a few minutes of resistance training with precise movements will limit injury while still providing powerful metabolic adaptation. Here, we encounter another paradox. To enhance the aerobic system, you don't need traditional aerobic exercise. It's high-intensity resistance training, often considered anaerobic, that provides the most comprehensive stimulus for both the heart and lung systems. Ultimately, your body doesn't know if you're pushing weights or running. It only knows that muscles are screaming for more energy. So what does global metabolic conditioning mean? It's a method that views the body as a unified whole, where all metabolic pathways aerobic, anaerobic, and phosphagon are mobilized simultaneously. It doesn't separate cardio and strength into two alien worlds. Instead, it shows that with just a brief but intense workout, you can activate the entire system. This perspective also frees us from the yoke of time. No more extended workout hours stealing time from family, work, life. You don't need to sacrifice an entire afternoon for a little feeling of having exercised. Instead, you only need a few minutes, but those few minutes must be lived to the fullest, pushing your body to its true limits. Let's return to the image of the two men at the beginning, one diligently jogging, missing his daughter's performance. The other left the gym after 8 minutes, smiling, still in time to pick up his daughter for dinner. The question is not just who is healthier, but who is living more fully. What science is whispering in our ears is clear. Health, fitness, and even happiness don't necessarily have to be traded for hours of toil. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes a few minutes of intense effort are worth more than a week of dragging it out. And sometimes, to truly be strong, you need to know how to let go. Let go of the more is better. Habits to find the minimum threshold that is enough to transform the body. That is the spirit of global conditioning. Concise, intense, comprehensive, and liberating you from the burden of time. Chapter 3. The Dose-Response Relationship in Exercise. In medicine, there's no such concept as more is better. Any drug carries a dual secret. One side saves lives, the other can kill. Aspirin can prevent myocardial infarction at low doses, but 5 times that dose, you face gastric hemorrhage. Insulin can sustain the lives of diabetic patients, but just one overdose, the body immediately falls into hypoglycemic coma. Sunlight is the same. A little helps the body produce vitamin D, while too much leads to sunburn, cancer. Exercise, though we rarely view it this way, is not exempt from this rule. It's also a form of medicine, and as medicine, it must adhere to the principle of the dose-response relationship. The problem is that our sports and fitness culture has long instilled in us a perverse belief: the more you exercise, the healthier you become. The daily runner believes a few more miles will bring more benefits. The gym goer believes a few more sets, a few more hours, will bring more progress. The logic sounds reasonable, but when put on the scientific scale, it's dangerously misguided. Imagine an S-shaped graph. In the initial part, you gradually increase the dose, meaning you gradually increase the intensity or duration of exercise. The body responds with small changes. That's the not enough zone, where you're active but not creating significant adaptation. Moving into the middle part of the graph, even a small dose is enough to cause strong changes. This is the optimal zone, where the body receives enough stimulus to be forced to evolve. But go further and the graph doesn't keep rising. It begins to plateau, then slopes downward. More exercise doesn't bring benefits. Instead, it erodes health, weakens recovery ability, opening the door to injury, degeneration. Yet paradoxically, this very toxic zone is where many people today venture. They are obsessed with clocks, with kilometers, with hours, with step-counting apps. They believe no pain, no gain, that they must be exhausted for it to be called exercise. The result: worn-out knee joints, hunched backs, disordered cardiovascular systems, like someone who overdoses on supplements. They drown in something originally meant to save them. Science has shown that the maximum effectiveness of exercise comes from the minimum dose, but one strong enough to push the body to the threshold of momentary muscular failure, the moment muscles cannot exert even one more repetition. There, the biological signals are strongest, demanding that the entire muscular, nervous, and endocrine systems upgrade. One more set, one more hour, holds no value. It only increases wear and tear. Remember the principle: precise dosage creates medicine, deviation turns it into poison. The paradox lies in the fact that we are taught from a young age that the harder we work, the better. The more we study, the smarter. The more we do, the richer we become. This mindset inadvertently permeates exercise. Yet the body is not a notebook to cram more words into, nor is it a production machine where more shifts mean more output. It follows strict biological laws. Exceed the dose, and the effect will turn into a counter-effect. Imagine exposing yourself to the sun. 10 minutes of morning sun helps your skin synthesize vitamin D, bringing immense benefits. But try standing in the midday summer sun for 2 hours unprotected. Your skin burns, DNA in cells mutates, the risk of cancer increases. The same factor sunlight, but the benefit or harm depends entirely on the dosage. Exercise is the same. A short but precise workout can create a strong signal, prompting the body to reconstruct. But 3 consecutive, hour-long grueling workouts only deplete energy, eroding recovery capacity. You cannot buy more benefits by piling on more time. Muscles don't grow faster just because you force them to work double. Heart and lungs don't become more resilient just because you torture them for a few more hours. On the contrary, you are drawing on your health capital to pay for the illusion of progress. Remember, the body has an adaptation window. When you push it to the point of muscular failure, the biological mechanism immediately registers that the limit has been reached and an upgrade is needed. It then initiates a series of reactions: increased protein synthesis, stimulation of growth hormones, strengthening of the nervous system. All of this happens after the workout, during rest. But if you don't give the body time to recover and continue to exercise, this signal gets disrupted. The body doesn't have time to build, it only has time to break down. This image is like ringing a bell. Ring it just enough, and the sound will resonate, filling the room. But if you take a hammer and strike it continuously, the bell doesn't sound better, it shatters. Exercising with the wrong dose is similar. Instead of making the body resonate, you make it crack. So, how much is enough? The answer is not in the number of hours, but in the quality of each set. If you truly bring your muscles to the point of failure, you have completed the necessary dosage. 1 or 2 more sets will bring nothing but risk. This is the point that most gyms and fitness programs overlook because it goes against their business model. They want you to believe that you need to exercise a lot, for a long time, endlessly. But the truth is, you only need to reach the right threshold. Science calls this the minimum effective dose, MED. An 81 mg aspirin daily can save a heart patient's life. An extra 500 mg won't save them faster, it will only make their stomach bleed. One precise set that pushes muscles to their limit will be enough for the body to adapt. 10 more sets won't turn you into a superhero, they'll turn you into a patient. In the medical world, exercise is considered an over-the-counter medicine. It's free, accessible, and rarely scrutinized as strictly as aspirin or insulin. Yet, in truth, it's just as dangerous as those other drugs if used incorrectly. You only need to look at the number of sports injuries, people with degenerative joint disease from too much running, or athletes who die young from cardiovascular problems. All are evidence of a toxic dose. This leads us to an important conclusion. The goal of exercise is not to do a lot, but to find the right, most effective minimum threshold. That is the intersection of stimulation and safety, where the body is forced to upgrade but not worn down. And this threshold, as reality has shown, is often much smaller than we imagine. Recall the concept of momentary muscular failure, the moment muscles are forced to give up, unable to push even 1 more centimeter. It is at that exact moment that the body registers the message, I need to be stronger, and like an evolutionary reflex, it begins the process of building anew. That is the precise touch of the threshold. A single, correctly executed set with sufficient intensity is more valuable than 10 superficial repetitions. This means that in exercise, quality always trumps quantity, like an arrow hitting its target is more valuable than 100 spears thrown into the void. If you've reached the threshold, stop. Give your body a chance to recover. If you haven't reached the threshold, then even if you exercise all day, it won't bother to change. This approach may disappoint many because it shatters the familiar illusion that one controls progress by the amount of time invested. But this is the truth. The body is not programmed to respond to total time, but to signal intensity. And that signal only appears when you reach the boundary of muscular failure. Think of exercise as a conversation with your body. You don't need to shout at it for hours. Just one well-timed, well-placed sentence, and it will remember. But if you keep yelling, it will shut its ears and ignore you. That is the spirit of the dose-response relationship. Exercise, when correctly dosed, is a miraculous medicine, short, precise, safe, and effective. When overdone, it becomes a silent poison, eroding your health every day. The final lesson of this chapter: stop counting hours, sets, kilometers. Instead, learn to recognize the moment, enough is enough. In that moderation, you will find true strength. Chapter 4: The Big 5 Exercises. If the human body were an orchestra, most gyms today only teach us to play individual, disconnected notes. Some are only obsessed with arm workouts, others are fixated on a six-pack. Some spend entire sessions just running on a treadmill. The result is a patchwork piece of music, lacking harmony, and most importantly, never playing at the exact moment it's needed. Body by Science proposes a different approach. Instead of a scattered array of exercises, we only need 5 movements, 5 dominant chords that can awaken the entire orchestra within the body. These are the Big 5, 5 fundamental movements, yet sufficient to activate all major muscle groups and create comprehensive adaptation for both strength and cardiovascular health. Those 5 movements are chest press, pull down, leg press, overhead press, and row. It sounds simple, but this simplification is its strength, because each movement doesn't just isolate one muscle group, but mobilizes an entire chain of interconnected muscles, like striking a chord where many strings resonate together. We start with the chest press. You sit on the machine, back firmly supported, pushing the horizontal bar across your chest. Not pushing hard as in traditional gyms, where people shout, "Go, one more." Here, the principle is slow, very slow. 5 seconds to push out, 5 seconds to bring back. Every movement is deliberate, as if you're writing each letter with precious ink on paper without allowing your hand to tremble. The goal is not the number of repetitions, but the moment your chest muscles are forced to admit, "I can't do any more." From the chest press, we move to the pull down. Your hands grip the bar above, pulling it down slowly, pressing it close to your body. Again, 5 seconds to pull, 5 seconds to release. Your back muscles, arm muscles, and core are all engaged. That burning, trembling sensation is not a sign of failure, but a promise that your metabolic system is being activated. Then comes the leg press, an exercise that makes many shudder at the name alone. Both feet on the platform, you slowly push the weight, then slowly lower it. It seems simple, but when your legs start to tremble uncontrollably, you'll understand what failure means. Just 1 to 2 minutes, and your legs will be as exhausted as if you've just run a marathon. But it is in that very moment that your body is reprogrammed. Next is the overhead press, pushing the weight bar from shoulder level to overhead. Like the previous exercises, the speed is slow and steady. Every centimeter is calculated. Shoulder muscles, arm muscles, upper back muscles must cooperate. And when you reach the limit, you feel that tremor, which is both painful and a conviction that your body is transforming. Finally, the row, a pulling motion. You sit, grip the horizontal bar, slowly pull it towards your body, then slowly release. This movement recreates the primal human motion of rowing a boat or pulling a net. And just like your ancestors, your body knows this is an act of survival. In just a few tens of seconds, your heart pounds, sweat beads, your entire body is mobilized. 5 movements, no more, no less. Each movement lasts about 1 to 2 minutes. All combined, it's only about 12 minutes. But in those 12 minutes, your body undergoes a journey from strength to cardiovascular health, from anaerobic to aerobic, from trembling to adapting. The uniqueness of the Big Five is not in how many calories it burns, but in that it creates the strongest signal for the body. Upgrade, get stronger. What surprises many people most about the Big Five is its slowness. In typical gyms, there's loud music, the clang of weights, everyone rushing to lift fast and heavy. Here, it's the opposite. You move so slowly that an outsider might think nothing is happening. Yet, this very slowness is a precise surgical knife, cutting deep into each muscle fiber, forcing it to work to its absolute limit. Think of a rubber band. If you snap it quickly, it might bounce back, creating momentum, and you might think you easily pulled the weight. But if you pull it very slowly, very steadily, giving it no chance to elasticize, you'll have to mobilize all your strength. Muscles are the same. Fast movements only make you rely on momentum, while slow movements force every muscle fiber to tense, every cell to mobilize energy. And here, you don't stop when you're comfortable. You continue until failure the moment you can't move even 1 millimeter further, even if your mind screams, keep going. That is the thin but crucial boundary, because it is failure that sends the maximum signal to the body. The old safe threshold is no longer enough. We must build a new, stronger body. So why only 5 exercises? The answer lies in the principle of compound movements. Each movement in the Big Five mobilizes not just one muscle group, but an entire connected chain of motion. Chest press uses not only the chest, but also the shoulders and triceps. Leg press is not just thighs, but also hips, glutes, and calves. Pull down involves the back, arms, and core for stabilization. These 5 exercises, performed to failure, are enough to cover almost the entire body. If the body is a city, the Big Five are its main arteries. By controlling just these 5 main routes, the entire transport system is mobilized. You don't need to build hundreds of small alleys to maintain survival. Crucially, the Big Five isn't just about muscles. Every time you bring a major muscle group to failure, your heart and lungs immediately rush to support it. Your nervous system has to strain to coordinate. In just 12 minutes, your entire body experiences a controlled crisis, forcing it to adapt comprehensively. That's the global metabolic conditioning explained in the previous chapter. Simultaneously stimulating both the aerobic and anaerobic systems, thereby creating the strongest improvement in the shortest amount of time. But don't mistake it. Short doesn't mean easy. The Big Five is intense in its own way. You don't run for hours, you don't lift weights for dozens of sets. Instead, you pour all your effort into a brief period until your body trembles, your heart races, and sweat pours. For many, this condensed intensity is even scarier than prolonged exercise. Yet, the reward is worth it. With just 1 workout a week, you give your body the strongest signal. For the rest of the week, you let it recover, build, and regenerate. And that's when the body truly grows, strengthens, and gets healthier. When someone first hears about the Big Five, the most common reaction is skepticism. Only 5 exercises, only over 10 minutes a week, and it's effective. This skepticism is understandable because we've been too long obsessed with images of crowded gyms, dense workout plans, and athletes spending hours every day training. But as medicine has shown, the issue is not quantity but precise dosage. Recall the image of a vaccine injection, just a few drops of solution, but enough for the body to build a powerful immune system. No one needs the whole vial, let alone daily injections. Exercise is the same. A few minutes at the right threshold of failure are enough to trigger a powerful chain of biological reactions, stronger than any marathon training plan. The core of the Big Five also lies in safety. High-intensity training always carries a risk of injury, but with the use of resistance machines, slow and controlled movements, that risk is minimized. You no longer worry about weights falling on your chest or knee joints buckling under sudden heavy loads. Everything is guided within a safe corridor, allowing you to go to the point of failure without paying the price of broken bones or torn ligaments. And then you realize something. This very minimalism frees you from the vicious cycle. You no longer need to wonder which exercises to choose, how to split your sessions, or how many sets to do. Everything has been distilled down to 5 movements. That simplicity dissipates the clutter, leaving a clear and effective straight path. But the Big Five is not just a training program, it's a philosophy of life. It teaches us that in a world full of choices, sometimes less is more, that the body doesn't need 15 exercises, it only needs 5. But those 5 exercises must be performed with absolute focus and honesty. That 12 minutes can replace 12 hours if you dare to pour all your energy into that brief moment. Instead of spending your afternoon at the gym, you can do the Big Five in 12 minutes and then step out, in time for your child's recital, in time for dinner with family, in time to live a fuller life. Health is no longer a price you have to pay with your time, but becomes a solid foundation that helps you enjoy your time. That's why the Big Five is considered the heart of body by science. It's not just 5 movements. It's 5 doors opening to a new lifestyle streamlined, scientific, sustainable, and rich in freedom. Chapter 5: Benefits of the Big Five exercises. Every workout program, no matter how glamorous, ultimately has to answer one question: what are its benefits? People don't exercise just to exercise. They exercise to live longer, to have a resilient body, to fight off illness, to walk lightly in their 60s, and also to look in the mirror and feel more confident. If a program doesn't answer these things, then it's just a waste of time. The Big Five exists precisely because of this question. It's designed not to burn calories in a single session, but to unleash a cascade of biological benefits that spread throughout the week, the month, the lifetime. The first and most obvious benefit: strength. Each movement in the Big Five is a compound movement, meaning it engages multiple muscle groups and joints simultaneously. The chest press not only activates the chest, but also pulls in the shoulders and triceps. The leg press not only trains the thigh muscles, but also the hips, glutes, and calves. The row involves the back, arms, and core for stability. In 12 minutes, the entire body is put in a situation where it is forced to become stronger. Strength here isn't about how many kilograms you lift, but the real capacity to lift groceries, carry children, climb stairs, and stand up on your own after a fall in old age. That's the strength that truly matters. Next is cardiovascular health. Many are surprised. How can lifting weights be as good for the heart as running? But science shows the opposite. When you push a large muscle group to the point of failure, oxygen and energy demands skyrocket. Your heart beats faster, lungs work at full capacity, and the circulatory system expands. In that brief moment, you are forcing your entire cardiovascular system to upgrade, and this benefit is equal to, even surpasses, hours of long-distance running. No traditional cardio needed, because the Big Five itself is cardio, but at a deeper level. It pulls the entire cardiopulmonary system along with the muscles, rather than separating them. Then there are your bones, a silent structure that determines your old age. Osteoporosis is a silent enemy that causes millions to suffer hip and wrist fractures from just a small fall. But one thing is certain: bones respond to pressure. When muscles contract powerfully, when force is transmitted through joints, bones are forced to remodel, becoming denser and stronger. The Big Five, with its high intensity and safety, is the most powerful therapy to prevent osteoporosis. No pill can do this. What about hormones? Our body is an endocrine laboratory, and exercise is the regulator. After a Big Five session, growth hormone levels surge, insulin sensitivity improves, and cortisol is modulated. This means your body burns fat more efficiently, builds muscle better, and combats stress more effectively. In an era where metabolic disorders and stress are common ailments, this benefit cannot be underestimated. Finally, a benefit many don't expect: time, just 12 minutes a week. This sounds like a joke, but it's true. While others spend hours on treadmills, you only need a brief period, then spend the rest of the week living, working, loving, enjoying. Health is no longer a burden that steals time, but a foundation that gives you more time. One of the biggest misconceptions about exercise is that to lose fat, you have to burn a lot of calories during your workout. The familiar scene in gyms, people toiling on treadmills, staring at the electronic display showing 200 calories burned, then smiling with satisfaction, as if that's the key to unlocking their dream physique. But the naked truth is quite different. If fat loss were simply a matter of calorie arithmetic, the world would no longer have obesity. Let's take a simple example. A person weighing about 68 kg, 150 pounds, walking or running, will burn an average of 100 calories per mile. 1 pound of fat is equivalent to 3,500 calories. This means to burn just 1 pound of fat, you would have to walk or run continuously for nearly 35 miles, or over 56 km. And that's just theoretical, not to mention the body's extremely sophisticated way of compensating for energy, making the numbers on the calorie counter just a sweet illusion. Therefore, diligently staying on a treadmill, believing you're burning fat, is actually like bailing water out of a leaky boat with a broken spoon, a lot of effort for very little result. But prolonged cardio is not just ineffective, it can be harmful. When you exert yourself in a steady state, the body is forced to rely on the long-term aerobic pathway. This comes with the consequence of increased oxidative stress. Cells are attacked by free radicals, leading to faster aging. Worse, the body tends to break down muscle as fuel because muscle is where glycogen is stored. And when glycogen is depleted, muscle itself will be consumed to replenish energy. This means that while you're trying to lose fat, you're destroying your most valuable asset: muscle mass, which is key to maintaining a high basal metabolic rate and helping you burn fat long-term. In other words, prolonged cardio is like selling off valuable assets to spend pocket change. So what's the real path? The answer lies in a lesser-discussed biological mechanism. Hormone-sensitive lipase, HSL, is the key to unlocking the fat in cells so it can be mobilized. Without HSL, fat remains locked in fat cells like tightly secured safes. You can run tens of kilometers, but if the lock isn't open, the fat stays exactly where it is. And what opens this lock? High intensity. When you put your body into a state of extreme stress, as in a Big Five workout, HSL is activated. This enzyme breaks down triglycerides in fat cells, releasing free fatty acids into the blood, where they become fuel. Conversely, light, prolonged exercise doesn't provide enough signal to flip that switch. But here's the biggest paradox. Precisely when you think you're burning the most fat, when you're doing steady cardio, insulin stands behind you, locking the fat safe tightly. Insulin is a storage hormone. As long as it's present at high levels, HSL will be blocked. This means you can run until you're out of breath, but if insulin is high, your body still won't touch its fat stores. You're burning energy, but not from fat, but from glycogen and muscle. That's why many people exercise regularly, but don't lose weight. They even lose muscle and feel tired. They're fighting on the wrong front. To truly lose fat, you must create a favorable hormonal environment. Insulin low enough for HSL to function, and high-intensity bursts of exercise to send the signal to mobilize fat. Let's look back at evolutionary history. Our ancestors didn't burn fat by running marathons every day. They lived in cycles of unexpected, short but intense pursuits, followed by rest and waiting. It was these short bursts of high-intensity activity that activated the enzyme and hormone systems for the body to mobilize fat, conserving energy for lean periods. Our bodies are programmed to respond to shock, not steady, prolonged exertion. If traditional cardio is like a gentle breeze blowing endlessly, not strong enough to break a branch, then the Big Five is a sweeping storm, forcing the entire biological forest to restructure. In a few trembling minutes of extreme intensity, HSL is activated. Fatty acids are expelled. The bloodstream becomes a highway for energy transport, and it's after the workout, during recovery, that your body truly burns fat to rebalance. But there's a powerful gatekeeper we must confront: insulin. This is a double-edged sword. When needed, it's a life-saving hormone that helps move glucose out of the blood, storing energy in the liver, muscles, and fat. But when in excess, due to a diet loaded with refined carbohydrates and sugar, insulin becomes the jailer of fat stores, preventing HSL from working. It's like having a vault full of gold, but the key is in someone else's hands. And paradoxically, many inadvertently lock themselves in. They start their day with pastries and sweetened coffee, drink sugary sodas in the afternoon, and eat white rice for dinner, topping it off with ice cream. Before insulin can even drop, they're at the gym running for hours. In that state, the body cannot burn fat because hormonal signals say, "Store, don't mobilize." As a result, they're only tired, lose muscle, and fat stubbornly clings on. This is why sustainable fat loss cannot rely solely on calories in, calories out. The body isn't a calculator. It's a complex endocrine system where the hormonal environment dictates whether fat is mobilized. To win this battle, the strategy must be twofold. First, lower baseline insulin by limiting refined carbohydrates and sugar and eating a balanced diet. Second, powerfully activate HSL with short, precise, high-intensity workouts. Only when these two conditions coexist will the fat vault open, and the body be forced to tap into its reserves. Many were surprised to find themselves losing fat faster with the Big Five workout just 12 minutes a week compared to tens of hours of cardio. The difference is not in the immediate calories burned, but in the biological signals. Cardio sends the message, conserve, break down muscle to survive. The Big Five sends the message, get stronger, burn fat to meet this shock. Two messages, two completely different outcomes. There's a hard truth to accept, but it must be said. Fat loss is not about burning calories, but about unlocking reserves. If insulin is high, if HSL is tied up, then no matter how much you exercise, the body will only circle around glycogen and muscle, leaving the abundant fat stores untouched. Therefore, the key is not how long you exercise, but whether you've created a favorable hormonal environment. Imagine the body as a two-story house. The lower floor is the fat vault. The upper floor is the living room containing glycogen and easily accessible energy. Most people only linger on the upper floor, eating a lot of sugar, high insulin, HSL locked. The body only draws energy from the living room, while the lower floor is packed with fat, but the door is locked tight. The Big Five is like a jolt that forces the body to open the lower floor. And once opened, your entire energy system changes. The body learns to rely on fat instead of constantly demanding more sugar. This explains why many people, after adopting high-intensity training combined with an insulin-controlled diet, suddenly find themselves less hungry, craving sweets less. They are no longer dependent on constant meals because the body has learned to eat its own fat. That is a state of energy freedom, where you are no longer a slave to sugar and hunger, but the master of the reserves within your own body. Compared to the empty promises of the fitness industry, burn 600 calories in 1 hour, lose 5 kg in 2 weeks, the science of fat loss sounds less appealing because it's not fast, not flashy, but it's sustainable. It doesn't just make you thinner, but changes how your body operates. You are no longer playing a game of calorie arithmetic, but have learned to control the hormonal switches. Of course, there will always be those who sell easy dreams. They will offer you diet pills, miraculous supplements, or a prolonged cardio regimen. But all these paths lead back to a dead end. Insulin resistance, muscle loss, fatigue, and ultimately, the fat remains. Only when you tap into the root mechanisms, HSL, insulin, and exercise intensity, will you truly achieve results. Fat loss is not a punishment, but a science. It doesn't demand that you run tens of kilometers or live in perpetual hunger. It demands that you understand your body, play by its rules, and utilize the evolutionary mechanisms already present. And those rules are very simple: moderate insulin, short and high-intensity exercise, adequate rest. When done correctly, fat is no longer an unconquerable enemy, but a loyal energy source that helps you live healthy and live free. Chapter 10: The Ideal Training Program for Athletes. In the world of professional sports, one of the biggest paradoxes is that the more athletes train, the easier they get weaker. It might sound illogical, but look at the reality. Packed schedules, prolonged weight training sessions alongside tactical drills, rest days devoured by conditioning. What are the results? Persistent injuries, exhaustion, and shortened careers. The problem stems from the mistaken belief that athletes need more than ordinary people. Many coaches believe that if an ordinary person needs one high-intensity workout per week, an athlete needs double, triple. They forget that athletes already expend enormous energy on their sport itself. Adding many hours of resistance training only erodes recovery capacity, making them enter the field of play with fatigued legs. Body by Science makes a counterintuitive statement. Athletes also only need minimalist principles, perhaps even more than anyone else. Because their goal is not to show off muscles on a stage, but to maximize performance in their specific sport. And that performance can only be achieved if they enter the game with a fully recovered body, not carrying fatigue from the gym. The core of the program for athletes remains the Big Five workout: chest press, pull-down, leg press, overhead press, and row. These 5 movements, performed slowly with high intensity to failure within 91-20 seconds, once a week, that's enough. That single, short workout sends a powerful signal to the entire muscular, nervous, and cardiovascular system. It maintains and enhances muscular strength, improves recovery ability, and importantly, it doesn't consume precious resources the body needs for practicing technique and tactics. Imagine a basketball player. His schedule is already packed: 2 hours of shooting practice, 1 hour of tactical coordination, plus weekend games. If you force him to add 3 traditional weight training sessions, each 2 hours long, he'll have no energy left. But with the Big Five, just one 12-minute session, his fundamental strength is still bolstered. His knee joints, lower back, shoulders all are better protected. And most importantly, he steps onto the court with legs full of energy to jump high and run fast, instead of having his energy drained in the gym. This is where Body by Science challenges the outdated thinking of many coaches. More training does not equate to better training. Athletes need balance, technique, tactics, and physical conditioning. If the conditioning part takes up too much, it will undermine the other 2 factors. The Big Five exists to ensure that the physical conditioning is strong enough, durable enough, but not overbearing. Observe a professional football team. Players spend hours every day practicing technique and tactical coordination. They run on the field, tackle, collide, react. Every movement is a form of high-intensity training. If you add many hours of traditional weight training, bench press, squat, deadlift with heavy loads, and many sets, you are putting their bodies into a state of chronic overtraining. Knee joints, lower back, ligaments will strain to bear the load. What seems to help them get stronger, actually, becomes the main reason they miss games during the season. Body by Science outlines a different path. Let resistance training be an auxiliary medicine, not a burden. With the Big Five, in just 12 minutes, that football player gets the optimal signal to maintain and improve overall strength. For the rest of the week, he can devote all his energy to practicing football, recovering, and competing instead of depleting it. This program becomes a support system. This applies to most sports. Swimmers need a resilient body, strong shoulders, stable backs. All are trained in the Big Five. Tennis players need explosive power in their arms and legs while protecting their shoulder joints from injury. The Big Five also provides this. Boxers or martial artists need a stable core and endurance. The Big Five is the foundation, while specific skills are honed in their respective training grounds. One often overlooked benefit is injury prevention in professional sports. Many careers end not due to lack of talent, but due to a persistent injury. The Big Five, with its slow and absolutely controlled movements, strengthens joints and ligaments, building a muscular armor that protects the body. This helps athletes not only perform better, but also play longer, a benefit any coach would admit is priceless. The psychological aspect also needs emphasizing. Many coaches are obsessed with the motto, "More is better." They fear that if they don't push their athletes to exhaustion, they haven't fulfilled their responsibility. But the truth is the opposite. A coach's responsibility is to maximize performance in competition, not to accumulate training hours. The Big Five frees both athletes and coaches from that endless cycle, allowing them to focus on what truly matters: performance on the field. A track and field athlete. Their day is already filled with sprints, warm-ups, recovery, competitions. Their body is already under immense pressure. Adding many hours of weight training is like forcing a warrior who has just finished battle to carry rocks up a mountain. What they need is not more burden, but a pure dose sufficient to strengthen them without breaking their balance. And the Big Five is that dose. It's comprehensive enough to keep muscles healthy, strong enough to protect joints from injury, and short enough not to take away precious time and energy. One Big Five session per week, sometimes just once every 10 days, lays the physical foundation for athletes. For the rest, they are free to pour their energy into their main sport, where their career is decided. The true power of this method is not in making them better in the gym, but in extending their playing career. A football player not suffering from chronic knee injuries. A tennis player not plagued by persistent shoulder pain. A track athlete not exhausted by overtraining. These are the differences between a career extending for 5 more years or ending in regret. And above all, the Big Five offers a lesson for both athletes and coaches. Science doesn't need to be flashy, just precise. Not cumbersome programs, not grueling hours of weightlifting, but a concise, focused framework consistently repeated. What transforms a vulnerable body into a resilient one is not extravagance, but simplification. In sports as in life, less but correct is the sustainable path. Athletes don't need to train more than ordinary people. They need to train smarter, more scientifically. And Body by Science, with the Big Five, is the solid foundation for them to not only perform better today, but also compete for a long time tomorrow. Chapter 11. The Ideal Training Program for the Elderly. In the minds of many, old age is associated with weakening, slow steps, trembling hands, and a back bent with years. They consider this inevitable, like the sun must set, like leaves must fall. But modern science has revealed a completely different truth. Aging is not simply a matter of time, but also a matter of choice. And one of the most powerful choices a person can make to defy age is strength training. Imagine a 75-year-old woman entering the gym with a frail body, struggling to get out of a chair. After just 6 months of proper resistance training, her strength soared. Many muscle and gene indicators reverted to near 40-year-old levels. Research shows that just half a year of strength training can reverse decades of aging gene expression, making the body rejuvenate from within, not just in external appearance. This is where Body by Science makes a bold assertion. The elderly don't need gentle exercises like leisurely walking or mild aerobics. What they need is high-intensity resistance training, of course, within a safe framework. Because only these powerful stimuli can send a signal to the body. Maintain muscle, maintain bone, rejuvenate. Gentle activities might help mental well-being, but they are not strong enough to resist the tsunami called sarcopenia-age-related muscle wasting. So what is the ideal program for the elderly? The answer still lies in the Big Five workout, but with appropriate adjustments. The 5 basic movements: chest press, pull-down, leg press, overhead press, and row remain the backbone, but they must be performed on safe resistance machines at an extremely slow pace and stopping precisely at a controlled failure. The exerciser does not need and is not allowed to jerk, thrust, or use momentum. Everything must be smooth and deliberate so that the muscles bear the entire load, while joints and ligaments are protected. Another important point is recovery time. The body of an elderly person needs more days to repair the microscopic muscle damage after training. Where a young person might recover in 4 or 5 days, an elderly person might need 7, 10, even 14 days. Therefore, the appropriate training schedule for them is not 3 sessions per week like traditional programs, but only 1 session per week, sometimes even 1 session every 10 days. The paradox here is that the less they train, the more they progress, provided each session truly goes to failure. The actual results are impressively hard to find fault with. Many studies show that after a few months of proper training, individuals aged 75-80 can achieve strength equal to, or even exceeding, the average of untrained 25-year-olds. This completely overturns the old notion that getting old means only getting weaker. It turns out that muscle is still there, just dormant. And resistance training is the wake-up call. And more than strength, what the elderly regain is independence. Standing up from a chair without assistance, climbing stairs without shortness of breath, carrying groceries without fear of falling. These small tasks, when lost, force people into dependence, diminishing their dignity. But when regained, they not only live healthier, but also live with freedom. The most frightening aspect of old age is not wrinkles or gray hair, but the loss of autonomy. One fall can turn the rest of one's life into a series of days dependent on a wheelchair or cane. One moment of weakness can close the door to social life. They become confined within four walls, gradually detached from real life, and it all starts with muscle atrophy, brittle bones, and loss of balance control. Therefore, strength becomes a new kind of life insurance for old age, not insurance on paper, but in every muscle fiber, every bone tissue. And the ideal program for the elderly is not to train gently for the sake of it, but to train strongly enough that the body has no choice but to adapt. Imagine a leg press session for a 78-year-old man. Initially, with a light weight, he trembled after a few tens of seconds. But under guidance, he patiently pushed each centimeter. 5 seconds up, 5 seconds down. When his legs helplessly stopped, that failure was not a defeat, but a beginning. It was that moment that the body received the command, rebuild, get stronger. A few months later, he could use double the weight, walk confidently, and climb stairs without holding on. Science confirms what can be seen with the naked eye. Just 6 months of proper resistance training can reverse decades of decline at the genetic level. Studies show that the gene expression of older adults after training closely approaches that of younger individuals. Not only do muscles get stronger, but the internal biological system itself is reprogrammed. It's a rejuvenation from the inside out. However, programs for the elderly also require caution. Unlike young athletes, they are more prone to injury if movements are performed incorrectly. Therefore, everything must revolve around 3 principles: resistance machines, slow pace, absolute control, no heavy free weights, no jerky movements, no competition. The goal is not weightlifting records, but sustainability and safety. Added to this is extended rest. No one should be pushed to train again when their body is still aching. The ideal training schedule is 1 session per week, or even 1 session every 10 days. It might sound like very little, but it's this very little that brings real progress. Because as the body ages, what it needs most is not continuous stimulation, but time to recover and adapt. More importantly, exercising in old age is not just about the body, it's about spiritual rebirth. When an elderly woman realizes she can carry her own groceries, or an elderly man realizes he can lift a weight he once thought impossible, they don't just get stronger, they regain the belief that old age is not a slow death sentence. They can live actively, freely, and proudly. There's a paradox few realize. The older people get, the more they need strong stimuli, not gentle ones. Not because the aging body wants to be tortured, but because only sufficiently powerful stimuli can awaken dormant biological mechanisms. When young, any activity causes the body to change, but in old age, biological sluggishness makes weak impacts almost meaningless. Leisurely walking or gentle aerobics might be good for the spirit, but to combat muscle atrophy, osteoporosis, and loss of balance, they are almost powerless. That's why the ideal program for the elderly must be built on a foundation of high intensity, short duration, and long recovery. Just 12 minutes of Big 5 per week or every 10 days is enough for the body to receive the signal. Retain what's most important: muscle, bone, strength. This means a single workout can determine the difference between an elderly person needing a wheelchair and one confidently walking down the street. The benefits are not just in muscle. When strength improves, the risk of falls drastically decreases, and falls are the leading cause of losing independence and even death due to hip fractures in the elderly. Additionally, resistance training improves blood sugar, blood pressure, cholesterol, and increases insulin sensitivity, helping prevent type 2 diabetes, diseases often considered unavoidable in old age, but which can actually be controlled or delayed simply by a correct exercise habit. But most importantly, exercise brings belief. An 80-year-old woman who can lift a weight she once thought impossible will look at life differently. She no longer sees herself as a burden. An elderly man who, after years of unsteady walking, can stand up firmly will feel like he's rejuvenated. That confidence permeates every action, every glance, transforming old age from a sentence of decline into a chapter of life full of dignity. It's never too late to start. At 60, 70, or even 90, the body still has the capacity to adapt, still can get stronger. The ideal exercise for the elderly is not pity with superficial movements, but respect, giving them the opportunity to challenge themselves, regain strength, and reclaim ownership of their lives.